Today I'm going to show you how to make this bingo bag. It's got some pleated pockets so you can put your daubers in, and then the other side is just one pocket, so if you want to keep your money in there, anything else, you can do that. In the video I mentioned cutting two different pieces that are 31 inches long. You can probably cut that down to about 28 inches long. For the bingo bag, you are going to need 11 by 18 inch times 2 for the front and back base pieces, plus one interfacing. Then you're going to need a 7.5 by 11 times 1 for the large pocket, 3.5 by 11 times 1 for the large pocket, 7.5 by 31 times 1 for the dauber pocket, 3.5 by 31 times 1 for the dauber pocket, 4 by 20 inch for the straps, and 6-inch Velcro. Now if you are doing a dual pocket that looks like this, there's two different fabrics, those are the measurements that you're going to need. If you're going to use just one piece or one color for the pockets, then you will just need 11 by 11 times 1 or 11 by 31 times 1. The first thing that we are going to do is take our 7.5 by 31 and 3.5 by 31, and then 7.5 by 11 and 3.5 by 11 pieces, and we are going to stitch the raw edges together. So you will stitch the top raw edges together, then you'll bring this up and you'll stitch the raw edges together. If you are not doing a dual fabric for the pockets, then you will just take your 11 by 11 and 11 by 31 inch pieces, fold them in half, and stitch across the bottom. Now I have this orange thread that I have had for a while and never used, so I'm going to use this. But I'm going to, whenever I start a project, and I'm making 6 of these, so I'm going to have like 2 or 3 bobbins. So that's what I'm going to thread first. I am going to use white thread because this is the inside and nobody's going to see it. And I've got a lot more white than I have of orange. We are using 1/4 inch seams, and make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Instead of sewing, pulling the fabric out, cutting the string, sewing, pulling the fabric out, cutting the string, I just push this back about 1.5 inches, and then I start sewing the next one, so that way I'm not wasting so much thread. And once you have that side of your 2 pocket pieces sewn, we're going to go ahead and start sewing together the other sides. Go ahead and clip your strings. I got a lot to clip because I'm doing 6 of these. Turn your fabric right side out. Now if you're using dual fabric, go ahead, take your pockets and center the middle part of your fabric and iron it down. If you're not using dual fabric, then just iron it down with your seam in the back middle. While we've got our iron on, we are going to go ahead and do our straps. So you'll take your strap piece, fold it in half, iron it down, Open it up, bring your raw edges to the middle and iron those down. And you're going to do that on both left and right sides. And then you will fold it in half and iron it down again. You don't have to worry about closing in the edges of the strap because that is going to be tucked inside. While you've got your iron out and hot, go ahead and iron on your interfacing to your base pieces. With the piece that you just finished ironing on the interfacing, you're going to mark a line 1.5 inches from the top. Then you're going to mark the middle of the fabric, which is at 5.5 inches. Then you're going to take your Velcro, mark the middle. I'm using a heat erasable pen on this because I can just iron it out and it disappears. And you're going to place your Velcro below that 1.5 inch line. And then do the same thing at the bottom. Measure 1.5 inches from the bottom. Mark the middle of your Velcro and place it above that line. Take over to your sewing machine and you are going to stitch all around the Velcro. I'm going to use white thread because the Velcro is white and it'll be less visible. Always remember to backstitch both ends so that way it's less likely that the thread will rip from the fabric. When you get to the corner, you are going to keep your needle down, lift up your presser foot, rotate your fabric, lower your presser foot, and start sewing again. That way you're not lifting your needle or moving the fabric and having some longer stitching. And now I'm going to swap out my thread as I'm going to be stitching in areas that will be seen, so I want a nice colorful color. Take your straps and you are going to stitch down both sides. Don't worry about the ends because those are going to be hidden. We just clip our strings. Don't forget I'm doing 6 of these, so I've got 12 straps. This next part is optional, but I love a good top stitch, so I am going to top stitch at the top of the dauber pockets and the single pockets. Our next task is to create the pleats for the bag. So how we're going to do that is we're going to take our 31-inch piece, which I think you can actually trim it down to 26 inches because we're not going to use the whole thing. But you want to, from the left side, so make sure the top is at the top. If you've top stitched, then that should be up there. But from the left side, you're going to measure over and mark 1 inch. From that line, you are going to mark 2.5 inches. Now, I have a piece of cardboard that is 6/8 of an inch wide. So I'm just going to put that down on the right side of my mark for the 2.5 inch. And I'm going to fold this over so the fabric folds in the middle, and then I'm going to fold over the other side so the fabric folds in the middle. Then I'm going to take out the piece of cardboard, and you can pin or clip the pleats so that they hold. Now mark from the center right there, that little slot, 2.5 inches, and do the same thing. Take your cardboard, place it on the right side of the mark, fold it over so it folds at the halfway mark of the cardboard, and clip. Take the base piece that has the interfacing and the Velcro, and you're going to fold it in half and create a crease in the middle. And you are just going to mark a line marking the middle. I'm using a heat erasable pen so that way I can just iron it off. From there, you're going to mark 1 inch on both sides. And do it on the other side. Mark 1 inch. And then draw a straight line across. This will be your guide as to where to place the pockets. Take the pleats that you just made and make sure that if you've top stitched, the top stitch is at the top, and you're going to place it along the mark that is 1 inch up from the middle line. And you want to make sure that you have about 1 inch to 1.5 inches marked. Actually, let's slide this over. There we go. And then the left side, actually I want it more. Right here. That's not going to be a pleat. So I'm going to take out half of my last pleat. And I don't want the fold to be on the edge because I don't want to stitch that down. So it's going to be right on probably 1/4 inch from the edge. Then I'm just going to take my scissors and cut off the additional fabric. Okay, make sure it's lined up correctly, and then I will clip it in place to the base piece. We'll take this over to the sewing machine. We are going to stitch this pocket on, so stitch the side, the bottom, and the other side. Do not stitch the top because it's got to be open for us to put our daubers in. Once you've stitched that all around, you are going to go to the middle of each pleat and just stitch a straight line. So take off the clip at the top, hold it open, and stitch a straight line going down. Go through and clip your thread. Now on the opposite side of the base piece, the other 1 inch mark from the middle that you drew, you are going to place your other pocket And this one, we're just going to stitch down the side, the bottom, and up the other side. Take your straps and you are going to place one edge, oh, wrong way, raw edges to raw edges. Place it about 1 centimeter away from the Velcro on both sides and both ends. You might have to clip it in place for it to stay. Take your other base piece that does not have interfacing and lay that pretty sides down. Make sure your pattern is going the same way and clip it into place. You're going to stitch all the way around, but you are going to leave the space at one end. It doesn't matter which end, but leave the space in between the straps unstitched. So once you go over the straps, stitch about 1 inch, back stitch a couple times, so that way whenever you are turning your fabric right side out, it doesn't rip. So back stitch at the beginning, go around, back stitch at the end. Clip your corners. I'm using pinking shears because those are just closest to me. And go ahead and turn it right side out. We're almost done. So what we have left is to tuck in the raw edges where we did not stitch. And then iron over it so it stays down. And then go ahead and iron the rest of your bingo bag so that way if there's any marks, those get ironed out and removed. Iron down your pleats. Take it back to your sewing machine and just do a top stitch all the way around. Make sure you don't stitch down the pleat. So just lift the pleat up and stitch it. And here's your bingo bag.